welcome to our webinar, Turn Your Cyber Defense into Secure Confidence with VRx and ServiceNow. My name is Rachel Wells, and I am the Digital Marketing Specialist at ITS, and it is my privilege to introduce today's speakers. First, we have Josh Burnson. Josh is our Chief Technology Officer. And we have Cami Warfield. Cami is our Senior Technical Writer. I'm looking forward to today's conversation, and I hope you are too. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you everyone for joining. Today, we're going to talk about vulnerability response, the complexity of setting up a VR program, as well as the risk in not maintaining it. And before we do that, I want to take a few minutes and talk about the people that are involved in vulnerability response, the different personas that make vulnerability response successful. We often think of vulnerability response as being the purview of the security team, and that's true. They're a big part of the program. They worry about the compromise of data and systems if they can't prevent that in advance by mitigating vulnerabilities. But they're not the only player. IT plays a very big role in remediating vulnerabilities, and their perspective is a little bit different. They care about the disruption to customers if a cyber threat gets through, but also the disruption to customers during the implementation of a vulnerability response program. And of course, we don't want to forget the executives. Our directors and leaders of our security team often look one step above. They're looking at the impact to revenue if we don't maintain our cybersecurity program, and also the damage to our reputation.
After years of helping organizations overhaul their vulnerability response, ITS partners looked at the top qualities of our most successful vulnerability response projects. Then we began to ask, what is the essential VR workflow that would help IT and security operations departments rapidly optimize their vulnerability response? In short, we're going to simplify the complex without missing any of the critical people involved. As well, we're going to build a baseline and continually measure the progress along the way.
We would like to introduce VRx, ITS's prescriptive program to implement ServiceNow's vulnerability response.
So what do you mean by prescriptive program?
Yeah, so we see prescriptive as identifying all of the requirements, all of the goals the organization has, and picking those features that will get to the goals as quickly as possible, and intentionally leaving out features that can slow us down or give us problems with adoption of a new program. So in this case, in VRx's case, prescriptive means we've predefined the scope as well as the time and the cost to create a whole package around implementing vulnerability response. So we can help you answer that question, where do I start?
So VRx is not only prescriptive, it is also flexible. We've developed a program to be flexible and accommodating to most organizations' goals. With VRx, we created 4 different tiers or versions so everyone in the organization can have their concerns met.
So let's take a look at those 4 versions. First of those is Baseline. Baseline is the lightest version of VRx, the shortest to implement, and the easiest to adopt. It's designed for organizations where there is one team managing vulnerabilities, or those organizations that want to start light and build on later. The key point of Baseline is that it's focused narrowly on reducing risk exposure. And to do that, we're taking all of the vulnerability data into ServiceNow and then building models for prioritization, grouping, and assignment so that the work can be assigned and started as quickly as possible. Now, of course, there's some organizations where IT and security work together on vulnerability response, and that's where Collaborate comes in. We're taking some of the newest features available from ServiceNow to make sure that both IT and security get their own unique workspace, but are still working on the same data, and that we can track the life cycle of vulnerabilities from beginning to end.
Now I see an asterisk next to this last one in Visualize. What is Visualize? Give us the overall.
Yeah, so Visualize is a special version of vulnerability response. It's meant for organizations where the CISO is directing the program or another director is leading the vulnerability response program. And there's some different needs, as we talked about earlier on. In this particular case with Visualize, we're focusing on the big picture and putting controls in place to make sure that the teams get their jobs done on time and that we can track when they're falling behind.
So can we go into a little more detail about the offering types breakdown?
Yeah, let's take a look at them. So if we take a look at the feature list here, baseline has a very small set of features intentionally. We want to keep those lightweight so that the team can adopt it easily and not get lost in the process of vulnerability response. We're focused on, again, bringing those vulnerabilities in, and then some key features such as scoring the risk, making sure that vulnerabilities are assigned properly and that they're grouped properly. Collaborate brings in several new features, the biggest one being the persona-based workspaces. IT and security both get their own workspace, but they're still working off the same data. And we include training and support to make sure that those teams are comfortable with the system before it goes live. Optimize brings in additional data sources so that we can have more accurate correlation between the security assets and the current organization's data, as well as enriching our vulnerabilities so that our teams don't have to go looking for solutions. The solutions can be provided to them. And of course, as we said, Visualize is a special version. Visualize looks for those hard to find vulnerabilities like the 0-day vulnerabilities, as well as those additional controls needed to keep everything on track. And it's topped off with a unique dashboard so that the directors can see the big picture. What is the progress on vulnerability response and where are we falling behind?
Essentially, what we have accomplished with these 4 offering types is allowing the clients to remain both focused and flexible in the choice of the prescriptive approach you choose that best fits your organization's needs. So can we go through a little walkthrough of the solution?
Yeah, let's take a look at a few of the key features of VRx. First, I'd like to start with the Vulnerability Manager workspace and the IT remediation workspace. These are the 2 workspaces for our 2 most active participants in vulnerability response, our security analysts and our IT remediators. Security analysts get the Vulnerability Manager workspace. It starts by grouping important vulnerabilities into what we call watch topics. This way we can see the big picture, but narrowly focused on the work we care about. We might be tracking some critical vulnerabilities that need attention now and some that we know we can't do anything about right away. When we're ready to initiate work, we create a series of tasks that are assigned to our remediators, and they see those in the IT remediation workspace. They can see tasks assigned to them or assigned to their whole group. They can dive into these tasks, see the solutions that have been presented to them, as well as assign them to change requests if that's required in the organization. Now, we don't want to leave out a couple of other critical personas. The managers, for example, get a dedicated dashboard that gives them the big picture of the organization. It lets them see the state of vulnerabilities over time, as well as important factors like mean time to remediate. And they get to see a breakdown per team to see which teams are keeping up and which teams might be falling behind and need some help. Our admins get a dedicated dashboard, a unique dashboard built by ITS for VRx. This dashboard brings together all of the critical information needed to manage the vulnerability response system. And if there is an issue, it points to it directly. So admins can save a lot of time.
Do we have any examples of where we directly implemented VRx?
Yeah, so we've implemented VRx for several customers. One in particular, Wellstar Health Systems, was actually our first, and they are using it today to a lot of success. Diane Koketoff, the executive director at Wellstar Health Systems, has talked about this many times, including at Knowledge last year, a presentation you can find on ServiceNow's website. We'd like to thank you for joining us on our webinar, Introducing VRx. We have future webinars planned to cover an in-depth demo, a walkthrough of VRx so you can see all the details, as well as to dive into those personas and give information on how they play a part in implementing and managing vulnerabilities.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Josh. And I want to thank all of you for attending today.